Dungeons and Dragons. Honor Among Thieves ending explained. Dungeons and Dragons. Honor Among Thieves ending sees a triumph for the band of heroes, while leaving room for more adventures to come. Based on the hit tabletop role-playing game Dungeons and Dragons, the 2023 film stars Chris Pine, Michelle Rodriguez, Justice Smith, Regé-Jean Page, and Sophia Lillis as a band of thieves uniting to reclaim a long-lost relic while facing evil forces. Throughout the movie, the thieves go on a quest to find the Helmet of Disjunction, which they intend to use to block Sofina's magic, rescue Kira, and retrieve the resurrection tablet for Ejin's wife. In Honor Among Thieves ending, the characters succeed in obtaining the Tablet of Reawakening and rescuing Kira, but find themselves battling Sofina to foil her plan to enslave the people of Neverwinter. During the fight, Simon masters his magical powers, and the group defeats the Red Witch Sofina, but realizes that Holga has been fatally wounded. After Ejin uses the resurrection tablet to revive Holga, the old Lord of Neverwinter is restored, the treacherous Forge, Hugh Grant, is sent to prison, and the thieves are declared heroes for their efforts. Why Ejin chooses to resurrect Holga instead of his wife. The primary motivation for the thieves' quest in Paramount's Dungeons and Dragons. Honor Among Thieves was to resurrect Ejin's wife Zia with the tablet, as he had been carrying the guilt of her death with him for years. Ejin even lost 2 years of time with his daughter because of his unyielding search for the resurrection tablet, which he thought would be worth it once he brought his wife back to life. However, after defeating Sofina, his best friend and Kira's surrogate mother, Holga, was killed in battle, leaving him with a nearly impossible choice to make. Ultimately, resurrecting Holga was an honorable act that proved Ejin was using the tablet for the right reasons instead of trying to relieve his guilt. Upon realizing that it was finally time to let Zia go, stop blaming himself for her death, and move forward, he and Kira used the tablet to resurrect Holga. While Kira would always love her mother, Holga was the one who effectively raised her and served as her mother figure throughout her life, so resurrecting her was the right choice for each character. Holga had also sacrificed much of her own life before death to help Ejin raise Kira and search for the tablet, so resurrecting her was a massive repayment for her loyalty. Ultimately, resurrecting Holga was an honorable act that proved Ejin was using the tablet for the right reasons instead of trying to relieve his guilt. Zia had already been gone for so long that Kira made peace with her fate, whereas Holga's death could be undone quickly without the heartbreak of Kira losing yet another mother. The meaning of Ejin seeing the dragonfly again. Ejin frequently sees a small dragonfly in the distance throughout Dungeons and Dragons. Honor Among Thieves, which has an important symbolic meaning. The dragonfly first appears during Zia's funeral, followed by moments on his adventure, in a flashback to when Zia was still alive and when Holga dies. The dragonfly is a representation of Ejin's wife Zia and his refusal to move forward. Dungeons and Dragons. Honor Among Thieves flashback scene to the couple seeing a dragonfly has Zia saying that some things need to be let go. Remembering her words, Ejin spotting the dragonfly again in Honor Among Thieves ending finally convinces him to let her go and save Holga instead. How Simon finally got the Helmet of Disjunction to work. The insecure Simon struggles to use his magical powers throughout Dungeons and Dragons. Honor Among Thieves unless his life depends on it, as those are the times when he's able to get out of his head and simply think about survival. At first, Simon wasn't able to make the helmet work because he had to attune with it, and his own fears and insecurities about his powers got in the way. Simon saw himself as a disappointment who couldn't repeat the greatness of his ancestor, Elminster Almar, with his self-deprecations standing in his own way. In Dungeons and Dragons, Honor Among Thieves ending, Simon is able to realize how strong he truly is, and that his powers are great if he lets them be. In another life-or-death situation, Simon takes away his fears of not being enough to use the Helmet of Disjunction, master his magic, and battle the powerful Red Witch Sophina. The only thing standing between Simon and mastering his powers was himself, so his confidence in honor among thieves ending allows him to be the great wizard he hindered himself from becoming. Are Doric and Simon a couple now? Why he finally got his second date. Simon originally helped recruit the owlbear-shaping tiefling druid Doric to the team of thieves because he had once been on a date with her and still had feelings for her during their quest. Similar to how Simon was finally able to master his powers, his ability to finally believe in himself and gain self-confidence was what led Doric to finally go on another date with him. After recognizing that Simon's self-esteem was raised on their quest, Doric was convinced to allow him to court her again, suggesting the two could be a couple in a sequel to Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. What happens to Forge now? Can he return for Dungeons and Dragons 2? After revealing that he had imprisoned the real Lord of Neverwinter, aided a Red Witch's attempt to make zombie slaves, and tried to steal riches from wealthy people betting on the games he's hosting, Hugh Grant's Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves character, Forge, was sent to prison. He was locked in the same prison that held Edgin and Hulda at the beginning of the movie, with Forge even attempting to escape the same way. However, Forge is set to be stuck in prison for some time, suggesting he won't be back for a Dungeons & Dragons sequel movie as a villain or ally. Are the Red Witches defeated? How D and D. Honor Among Thieves sets up a sequel. While Edgin, Holga, Simon, Doric, and Kira successfully defeat Sophina in their final battle, Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves ending suggests there are even more powerful evil forces still at play. Above Sophina is the powerful red wizard villain Sas Tam, who had been overseeing her attempt to enslave more people after previously destroying the Fae. The heroes may have beaten Sophina, but Shastam is still working from the shadows and is set up as a far more formidable foe. As such, Edgin and the thieves already have the next villain to take down in a potential sequel to Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. However, Paramount has yet to confirm whether Dungeons & Dragons 2 will happen. The real meaning of Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves ending. As the title suggests, one significant theme in Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves is to have honor in one's misdeeds. The adventurers may be thieves who steal from the rich, but they decide to return such goods to the masses instead, making them a Robin Hood-like group in Honor Among Thieves ending. The movie also warns against selfishness and greed, as the team is only rewarded once they risk their own safety to defend the people from Sophina, which means losing the treasures they could have claimed from Forge's ship. Forge is then sent to prison with nothing to show for his schemes for Sophina, whereas Dungeons & Dragons title thieves emerge with the riches of self-fulfillment, pride, and camaraderie. The meaning of Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves ending also preaches that everyone's worst enemy is themselves. Edgin was the one standing between himself and happiness with Kira and his path to moving on. Because he couldn't let go of his guilt for Zia's death, his dogged pursuit of finding the resurrection tablet created a broken relationship with his daughter and an inability to move forward. The power of teamwork and friendship was also instrumental to the success of the hero's quest, and thus also the happy endings of Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves main characters. Edgin was so stuck in the past that he couldn't live in the present, thus sabotaging his relationships with those still alive. In Honor Among Thieves ending, Edgin is finally able to find peace once using the tablet to save Hulda instead of his wife, which also helped heal his relationship with Kira. The same lesson in Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves ending also applies to Simon. He was the one person standing between himself and his path to becoming a great wizard. The pressure of living up to his family legacy and his constant self-doubt kept him from being the successful and confident magician and person he could have been. which is why he's finally able to master his powers upon gaining more self-assurance. However, the power of teamwork and friendship was also instrumental to the success of the hero's quest, and thus also the happy endings of Dungeons & Dragons. Honor among Thieves' main characters. How the D&D Honor Among Thieves ending was received. Dungeons & Dragons. Honor Among Thieves turned out to be a surprise hit with critics, with many of them praising the solid cast, the fun humor, and the well-written story. This sort of praise has extended to the movie's ending as well. There are some reviews that have highlighted the fun action set pieces in the final act, while others criticize the final battle. However, Dungeons & Dragons' ending seemed to be most effective when it came to Holda's death. One Redditor acknowledged that the movie sold the emotion of the moment, even if the outcome was predictable. Likewise, Ian Sandwell at Digital Spy praised Dungeons & Dragons. Honor Among Thieves for using Holda's death to do something new with a tired trope of genre movies. The review acknowledges the common use of the heroic sacrifice that sees one of the main characters give their life for a noble purpose, only for the sacrifice to be undone when they are revealed to be alive before the credits roll. However, Holda's sacrifice and Edgin's subsequent decision helped to make for a new approach to the cliché. It's a trope that's been so overused that it loses its impact, but Dungeons & Dragons. Honor Among Thieves revives hope that when the fake death is done well, it can still make an impression. Will there be a Dungeons & Dragons sequel? While the critical reception for Dungeons & Dragons, Honor Among Thieves was strong, the movie did not perform as well in theaters. With a $150 million budget, the film only earned just over $200 million worldwide, suggesting it would not be a profit for the studios. While that might not seem like a terrible box office performance, it is also not the kind of success that helps convince a studio to launch a franchise. As a result, fans have been left waiting for any news on a Dungeons & Dragons sequel. Despite the disappointing box office, it does seem as though Paramount is at least still interested in the franchise. Even after it became clear that the movie was a box office disappointment, Paramount Pictures CEO Brian Robbins suggested that the sequel could still be done if it were on a smaller budget, via Variety. Adding to the potential of the franchise's future, it was also announced that there would be a Dungeons & Dragons television series on Paramount Plus, with the entire 8-episode first season already ordered. The series is said to be a spin-off of sorts from the movie, suggesting that Paramount doesn't feel the need to discard the film entirely. In fact, the series could be a way of boosting the enthusiasm for the franchise and showing the public that it is not something only for fans of the game. If the series is a success, then it is entirely possible fans could be seeing a sequel to Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves to follow.